Thank you, Mr. Weber. I appreciate that. I wanted to ask either Mrs. Cutting or Mr. Auers about an article that was in the Wall Street Journal earlier this year that analyzed data from Capline Pipeline. Not sure if you're familiar with the company Capline Pipeline in Louisiana, but it tested crude from about 86 locations worldwide to measure vapor pressure. And from what they found, according to this article, is that the light sweet crude from the Bakken had a higher vapor pressure than crude from dozens of other locations around the world. And I just wanted to ask you, like one of the companies in here, for instance, Tesoro Corporation, a major transporter of Bakken crude, said it regularly received oil from North Dakota with even more volatile pressure readings, sometimes up to 12 psi. Does that sound unusual to you at all?
And 12 fits right in with what Bakken looked like. In our study, it varied. Again, sometimes we get confused in talking about RVP and true vapor pressure. We use true vapor pressure, which measures out about a pound higher than RVP does. But typically, Bakken, from an RVP standpoint, will be 8 to 12 pounds. From a true vapor pressure standpoint, 9 to 13 pounds. Again, it does vary seasonally a little bit. So 12 fits right in that range.
Well, compared to other light sweet, would other light sweet be in that range as well too?
Yeah, as I mentioned in my testimony, some within 2 or 3 pounds of that, some higher, some lower. A lot of the conventional pipeline crudes like the LLS, the West Texas crude at Cushing, some of those will be generally a little bit lower, more in the 5 to 8 range. Most of the tight oils are going to be potentially higher, the Eagle Fords, the Niobraras, the Uticas. So it varies. But within those ranges, I don't know that there are substantive differences. Again, others are studying, and as I mentioned earlier, I don't think anybody knows. Certainly, vapor pressure doesn't correlate directly with flammability or ignitability, as per the ethanol example. But to what degree it contributes to ignitability or flammability, that's being studied. And we're not doing that study. That's being studied by other groups.
Well, what about, it said by comparison that the Louisiana light sweet from the Gulf of Mexico had vapor pressure readings of 3.33 psi, according to Capline. So when you compare that 3.33 psi compared to what's coming out of the Bakken, how large of a difference is that? Because you're talking about both being light sweet there.
LLS actually is one of the, and that's pure LLS. Right now, Bakken is part of the LLS stream. When Bakken comes into St. James, it gets blended into LLS. So LLS actually, a typical LLS is probably above that level now. It's probably more in the 5 or 6 psi range. What is the difference between a 3 or 4 pound crude and a 10-pound crude as far as safety issues? I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. People are studying that. I suspect that, again, by my example, ethanol has a vapor pressure of 2.3 psi, which is lower than LLS, but it's extremely flammable and ignitable. So the ignitability and flammability question is extremely complex, and one reason why there haven't been any results, any conclusions from the studies to date, because there are a lot of factors that go into it, beyond just vapor pressure, beyond just light ends content, beyond just flash point or initial boiling point.
I mean, with your knowledge of transportation and quality issues related to the Bakken, I mean, what's safer from a public safety standpoint? Is it better to transport this stuff by rail, or is it more safe to have it in a pipeline?
I believe, as I heard in earlier testimony, and I'm sure Kari would say that as well. It all depends. I think all those forms of transportation can be safe, including marine, which you didn't mention. We transport crude oil products by all those forms of transportation.
You're transporting Bakken by marine around the U.S.?
Bakken will be, they are putting in rail terminals on the West Coast. The idea is to rail it to the West Coast and transport by marine down to California. Bakken, as I said, does make it to the Gulf Coast, and some of those barrels do get blended into an LLS stream, that's the potential is to transport that by marine around to the East Coast. So I anticipate that Bakken will be moved by marine at some point. Again, the plans are if those terminals on the Columbia River get built, then there will be Bakken moved by marine. So all forms of transportation are safe if they are done correctly.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.